insult already. I've already been insulted. We're not even on the air yet.
Meet me at the movies. I am Noel Manning II. Well, beside camera one, we've got a guy that may never show his face on film again, John Connor. John Connor, you may never be back again on the big screen.
Are we going to go there? No, I don't think so.
Let's go there. Well, just because of how poorly it's doing in the box office.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah. Greg Tillman, that is Greg Tillman. I am Noel Manning II. Thomas Manning to my right, hanging out with his Spider-Man shirt on. Nice new shirt. Like that, man.
Yeah, appreciate it.
Good deal. Tim and Derek, I think they're back here on the Tim cam. Yeah, Derek is like this little, what is it, a weasel that pops up? Pop goes the weasel.
Yeah, I've always thought he was big.
Yeah, pop goes the weasel.
Kind of a bit of a weasel. Yeah.
You never know where he's going to show up, Tim. Tim, Tim's not doing his job. He's not keeping him in.
Tim's just lonely in there, and he'll take any company he can get. It's sad, really.
I like it. Well, welcome to Meet Me at the Movies. We've got a lot of movies to try to talk about this week, and you took a sick day, but yet you came in to do the show.
I'm dedicated to my profession.
Yeah, and we appreciate it,
and I feel worse than I look. If that's hard to believe,
really?
I know.
Really?
Well,
but
I'm trying to pump it up for the camera and. Show must go on kind of thing,
I like it.
Besides, if I doze off a little bit from the drugs, you'll know why.
We'll just let Thomas carry the show after that.
He usually does anyway.
Well, there are several movies to talk about. We're going to get to Terminator Dark Fate later in the show. Also, we've got a movie called Parasite that is not a horror film, not in the true sense of what you think of with horror. It's not about monsters or like creature monsters. But we're going to talk about that, and it's a Korean-made film, and Thomas and I got a chance to check that out, and it's a big moneymaker, talking about a film that is making some money, Parasite. And we're going to talk about Midway. I want to dive into Midway. This is a film that's based on World War II, and the film itself follows from Pearl Harbor all the way to the Battle of Midway. Roland Emmerich directed this, produced this. He had military supervisors on hand that kind of gave the realistic authenticity that you would hope you would see in a film like this. It's anything you think of when you think about Roland Emmerich. You think about explosions.
Yep.
You think about special effects. You think about sound design. Those are all things that kind of roll into what you think
Big
about.
budget.
Big budget kind of stuff.
Tentpole movies.
Got a chance to interview him recently with a couple of cast members. And next week, we're going to be able to provide that to you on this show. So I'm looking forward to doing that so you can get a kind of a taste of what he put into this film.
Will Midway still be in the theaters?
Yeah, it will. It will. For opening weekend, it was #1. Didn't make a ton of money, but it did open up at #1. And I will recommend checking it out if you're a history buff, if you'd like war films. It is a long film, 2 hours, 18 minutes. The time could have been shaved off a bit on this film, but but the things that really worked for this, the special effects, the sound design, the visuals, and this is a movie where you talk about battles. You're seeing battles on sea and in the air, and they were phenomenal to look at. Absolutely phenomenal to look at. Huge cast, a lot of faces that you would recognize, maybe not names. Woody Harrelson's name you definitely would recognize, but there are the other faces and names that you may not, but you say, yeah, I've seen that person, know that person. So a lot of actors that have had talent, that have been out there. The story is really a story about two sides of war, and if you want to throw in family and honor and loyalty, all those things are drawn into it as well. You're not just seeing the American side, so this is not an American propaganda kind of film.
Right, kind of like Tora was.
Right, or if you go back to John Ford, who actually shot the kind of a 50-minute documentary of Midway, and he was there when it was happening. It's not that kind of film. This is a film that shows you both sides, and it shows the humanity that's on both sides. And that's one of the things I really liked about this, is that you really got a sense for, as bad as we have said, okay, they're the enemy. Yeah, they're the enemy, but they have purpose as well. They weren't just out there to destroy and dominate. And you get a sense of that here. Even at the end of the film, it was dedicated to the Americans and the Japanese who lost their lives on land and sea. There are a lot of storylines going on, and that's one of the drawbacks for this. It's a film that is based not just on a true story, but it's also based on true characters. And so at the very end of the film, you get a chance to see what happened to those actual characters.
That's interesting.
So the names that show up are actual people that took part. And I think Emmerich was really trying to show a slice of history that maybe hadn't been shown before by doing that. And so with all of those different storylines, there were times Aaron Eckhart is in this film, and his role, he's on screen like maybe 5 minutes. But his role was significant to allowing Midway to happen. And that's why Emmerich wanted to show this. So for most audiences that go in, you know, this is not a check your brain at the door kind of thing. You really have to keep up with what's going on. Some of the edits I had problems with because you would transition between a war room that was happening in Japan and then a war room that was happening in the US. And sometimes you're like, okay, where am I now? Asking yourself that question.
As far as historical dramas go, is it better than Pearl Harbor was years ago?
The one with Ben Affleck?
Yeah.
Yeah, I would say it's better than that one.
Good.
Yeah. I gave it a solid B. It's a good film, not a great film. It did have its holes, but for Veterans Day weekend, it was a great kind of getaway to check that out. And I always enjoy films that focus on historical actions and historical facts.
Yeah,
and,
me too.
Even if they stretch it a little bit, if it makes you go back and investigate, I think it's done part of its job. So a B for Midway. Film that I mentioned earlier that is not about war, unless you look at social warfare. It's a movie called Parasite, and this is a Korean-made film, and it's making some bucks, Thomas.
Yeah, so on a budget of $11 million, it has made $113 million worldwide, including...
Holy cow.
Yeah, I think like 11 million in the United States, which for a South Korean film, very limited release in the United States, that's really solid. Its per theater average is really high as well, but yeah, internationally, it's definitely cleaning up.
Yeah, it's a film that that looks at social struggle, and it looks at it from the standpoint of those who have way too much and those who have way too little, and even those that have beyond way too little. Dive in and share some thoughts about the story, and there are multiple things that are happening, so we're not going to give away the whole story.
Yeah, so it's the true definition of a genre mashup. It's a family drama. It's a social satire, social commentary. It's a dark comedy. It's like a Soderbergh-esque heist thriller type thing, and you've got some Hitchcock influences there, suspense and twists and turns, shots around every corner.
And you throw in some Quentin Tarantino in it as well.
Yeah, some Tarantino level dialogue, and just the way the scenes are constructed, just 10 to 15 minutes straight of people having a conversation and just building and building some of the suspense, some of the tension. And it's one of the most unique films I've seen in a really long time. Because like, the first hour, it really is, it's like a heist dramedy almost.
It is, it really is.
And then there's something that happens like right past the 1 hour mark, and it just takes this complete like 180-degree turn. And some films try to do stuff like that and it just doesn't work, but for this one, there's something about the way, directed by Bong Joon-ho, I believe is how you pronounce the name.
That's exactly how you pronounce his name today.
If I'm butchering it, then I apologize, but yeah. But the way he directed this is unlike anything I've seen in a really long time.
It's incredibly creative, and it is a film that you find yourself laughing 1 minute, and then the next second you're holding your breath going, whoa, what is going on here? And it does take you in all these different directions. It is remarkable. It is one of the most creative films, and for it to be a foreign language film, you have to truly immerse yourself and engage yourself in it because you're reading subtitles, unless you speak Korean. And after about 5 minutes, and I love watching foreign language films.
Right.
I don't have any problem watching foreign language films. I'll even watch open caption films at the AMC if it's at the showtime I want. So I don't.
So many people don't like that.
know,
And they
but
miss out on so much.
They really do, and that doesn't bother me. I mean, I think if you refuse to engage in foreign language films because you're afraid of the subtitles, you're missing some great cinema, and this is a great example of it. several years ago, I talked about a film called A Taxi Driver that I really loved. Also, Battleship Island, which were both Korean films, and they
Train
were
to
amazing.
Busan, too.
Yeah,
The
absolutely.
zombie
Wow,
flick we
that's-
watched.
And
That's,
a
yeah.
the
spectacular
filmmaking,
zombie film.
the filmmaking that's happening
Yeah.
in South Korea is absolutely incredible. And this is another example of it. This film just speaks on so many different levels, and you've got this storyline is you've got this family that's living in kind of this subterranean basement. They've got slivers of light coming through these windows, and it's a family of 4, and they're trying everything to survive.
They're literally below the poverty line.
Absolutely.
Just they live in a basement below ground level.
Right, and you've got, at times you've got a bum that's going and he's, you know, basically doing his business on their windows outside so they can see him, you know, using their outside as a bathroom. So that's how bad off they are. But something happens and
Does it count as a room with a view?
I wouldn't go for that view. Tim might, but I wouldn't. No.
What the heck
What
is
the
going
heck?
on? Oh my gosh.
Yeah, it's the kind of view that I would stay
I
away
thought
from.
Halloween was over.
Say that. But something happens and they end up finding a way to work for some very wealthy people.
Yes.
And through a series of other things, you find that the con is on. And once the con is on, it becomes crazy.
Yeah.
It becomes absolutely crazy. And the more I watched it, the more I loved it.
Yeah.
And I could not turn away. I never left the theater, and the movie it's over 2 hours long.
2 hours and 12 minutes. Yeah.
2 hours and 12 minutes. So where 2 hours and 18 minutes of Midway felt a little long, this did not because there was so much going on.
Yeah, it just clips by. The way the pacing is handled is just excellent. But some people might find it to be a little bit overwhelming with how much is going on, but if you're fully committed to it and really focused on the things that are transpiring and go in with an open mind, you'll just be absolutely blown away with the way that the directors and the writers are able to balance everything so well. Like, there's so many different commentaries that they touch upon. There's like,
Well, they look at madness.
Yeah.
You know, what does it take to send somebody over the edge?
Well, I could tell you that.
And they
Tim
do
could
look,
too, probably.
They do look at those who have wealth and those who have nothing. But they also look at some other things
like
as well.
social isolation. They definitely, the most obvious example is the class system and the just extremes between the highs and the lows of the class system. And we were talking about this, and we were on the same page with Joker. We felt that Joker couldn't quite find what it was they were trying to say with the film. But we think this one touched on many of the same themes as Joker in a much more coherent fashion.
I think so too. I think it did it in a better way. I mean, you don't have the acting of Phoenix that stands out. I mean, all the cast is solid in this, and you're not just looking at one solitary character. But I was just blown away. One of my film critics from Canada, Eric, who has a show called Cinema Scene, recommended this about a month ago, I guess. And so I said, okay, I've got to check it out. He said it's one of his best of the year, and says, okay, it's on my list to check out.
So there's a great article on IndieWire.com that details the production design. So this rich, high-class level house that our main characters kind of blend into the family. So this house was actually built specifically for this film.
Really?
It's within the story. It's like this famous architect built
Kind of like
this
a
house.
Frank Lloyd Wright kind of guy.
Yeah, it's a fictional architect, but that's a big part of the plot line. And this house, the way they arranged it, the way the production designers, the director of photography, and the director, they all came together and had to make sure like that all of the geometrics of this house, the lighting styles, everything fit perfectly to get the framing and the camera movements just perfect. And there's a great article I'd highly recommend checking out that kind of details that.
I'll check that out. Yeah. Cinematography is stellar. I mean, you felt claustrophobic at times, and then other times you were just
you could catch your breath finally.
Yeah, absolutely. And so sound design, the score was well done. I mean, this was probably as solid and as perfect of a film as I've seen.
Yeah.
And so solid A+ for me for the movie is called Parasite.
Yeah, A+ as well for me. They're one of the best of the year without a doubt.
Yeah, and it's a film that we can continue to talk about. Thomas and I did that on the way home, and we're still talking about it even a day later. We're going to take a quick intermission. We're going to come back and talk about Terminator Dark Fate. We're going to see what the fate is for this franchise right after this intermission.
Cakes and cookies, toys and gifts, Christmas at your fingertips.
It's the shopping event of the season, the Southern Christmas Show, November 14th through 24th at the Park Expo and Conference Center. Explore a woodland Christmas with forest-inspired decorations for the merriest time of year, and shop hundreds of booths to find one-of-a-kind gifts for everyone on your list. Buy tickets online and save at southernChristmasShow.com.
Let's go to the Southern Christmas Show.
Chef Paul Prudhomme once said, "You don't need a silver fork to eat good food." Well, on Cleveland County Kitchen, we don't have a silver fork, but we sure do serve up lots of good food. Hi, I'm Deborah Blanton. I hope you'll join me for the next Cleveland County Kitchen. Each month, we offer a complete farm-to-table experience. We visit local growers, we learn about nutrition, and wrap things up with wonderful meals prepared by our guest chefs. It's a lot of fun. I hope you'll join me for the next Cleveland County Kitchen.
At CCC, we're all about training students for exciting careers. Our Barber Academy is a great example. Did you know jobs for barbers, stylists, and other related fields are increasing? Competition for the best jobs will be strong. With your CCC training, you'll have a definite edge. Our courses give you the skills and knowledge you need to sit for North Carolina's Apprentice Barber exam. To move up the ladder, you need at least 1 year of on-the-job training before you take the state's registered barber exam. If you pass, it's official. You'll be a registered barber. While private barber schools can cost $10,000 or more, CCC makes it affordable. Plus, you can complete our Barber Academy in only 15 months. Now the question is, are you ready to start your journey today?
They're gonna put me in the movies. They're gonna make a big star out of me.
Welcome back to Meet Me at the Movies. I'm Noel Manning II here, hanging out with Greg Tillman over there beside camera one. Greg Tillman. You got Thomas Manning over here to my right, and back there making everything happen is Tim and the Weasel. That's right, Tim and the Weasel. Derek the Weasel. Good to see you guys.
That sounds like a movie title.
It does, doesn't it? Derek the Weasel. Only in theaters this weekend.
It's going to bomb, though.
Speaking of films that are probably only going to be in theaters for another weekend, let's talk about Terminator Dark Fate. This is like the 12th Terminator in the franchise. I'm exaggerating.
I think it's the
fifth.
fifth.
It's the sixth.
Fifth or
sixth,
sixth?
yeah.
Sixth in the franchise.
Yeah.
Well, we'll get email if we're
Not counting the
incorrect,
Sarah Connor Chronicles on
which
TV.
I like, Sarah Connor
Yeah.
Chronicles. But Dark Fate, you got Sarah Connor back. You
Right.
got Arnold back again, even though he's a different Terminator, but is he? I'm going to let Greg start because Greg got
don't
a
do
chance
this to me.
Yeah, you're going
You're going to set me up, aren't you?
I am setting you up, and I'm going to let you share your
Look,
thoughts.
I don't care what you say after this. I enjoyed it. I think it was the best one, and maybe that's not saying much, but it's the best one since Judgment Day.
Okay. Why?
Huh?
Why?
Defend your points.
Oh, there he goes.
Hey, Tim, you gonna let him talk to me this way? Yeah. I don't know. I thought the characters. I thought the characters were drawn better than any of the previous films since Judgment Day.
Okay.
Have
Have you seen the other ones?
Yes.
Okay. Just asking.
There's something visceral about seeing Arnold and Linda Hamilton back on screen. There's that nostalgia quality to it. I know that's not enough to carry a $180 million movie. And it wasn't without its flaws. It was too noisy. Now, if you've seen the first one, and I know you have, it's a non-stop roller coaster for the most part, except for a few minor scenes. They slowed it down. They put the brakes on a little bit more in Judgment Day. They could have braked a little bit more in this one, but I thought it worked. I thought it worked. And the first scene, I don't know, is that what turns you off?
that spoiler that
Well, we're not talking. We won't have to necessarily have time.
No, not really. No,
Yeah,
it didn't.
yeah.
It
Is
didn't.
that because a lot of people
that
didn't
didn't-
like that?
Actually, that was probably one of the
I thought
things
it-
about
it was
the script
creative.
I thought that
really
was
enjoyed.
brilliant.
Yeah, there were some creative plot twists
Yeah.
in this film. That's one of the things that I think they did well.
Yeah.
I felt like the action sequences for me were recycled. I felt like I was watching the same thing I saw in Judgment Day.
Yeah.
With the car chases, I feel like I've seen that before.
What about the plane crash slash?
I mean, there were some
Too dark.
yeah, I mean,
it was
when-
not lit very well.
Yeah, it was not lit very well in the theater we were in. I mean, when they crashed in the water and they were battling, I'm like, okay,
See,
I guess they're fighting.
maybe it's the theater because I saw it
Maybe.
in Boone and I
Okay.
didn't have any trouble at all.
Okay, maybe it was a
So,
projector issue.
yeah.
But I just, there was a lot of noise, and,
Right.
and I think that's one of the things that, and I didn't go there, but I almost said, this almost feels like that last Transformers film where it was just noise at every turn.
Ooh, if Zane
It
Grey-
wasn't there.
If
you
Zane
know.
Grey's watching this, he will not approve of that comment.
It
but,
wasn't,
Who's watching
and I'm not talking about Bumblebee, I'm talking about
Oh yeah.
the other one.
Yeah, I know. Still, yeah.
But it just, for me, it just felt like I was watching the same thing again without a lot to pull me in. I didn't think the acting was as solid this time. I didn't feel that the characters were as engaging for me this time. It just, I honestly felt like an AI had kind of directed and written and was
Really?
starring in this thing. I really did. It just, I just
I
felt
thought
flat
it
for
had a
me.
little more heart to it than
And
what
and
I've
that's
seen
what
in
I
a
felt.
while.
I felt it didn't.
Yeah.
For me, I didn't feel the heart or the soul.
Yeah, so one thing that I noticed looking at the credits was there were 6 credited writers that worked on it on different stages in the project, and that's something.
That's usually
that-
a bad sign.
Yeah, and that's something that I could definitely tell just because there were so many like tonal imbalances. It felt really messy at certain points. Some pacing issues and. For me, just too many recycled plot beats from other Terminator films we've seen before.
Terminator was
like,
sent to kill me.
like you mentioned, there's something that
To
happens in
stop
the
the birth
first
of my
2
son,
minutes that some people really rubbed the wrong way, but I actually really appreciated that they took an ambitious, gutsy move like that. But I felt like that was about the only thing they did that was new and fresh and different. You know, some people might compare this to The Force Awakens. Star Wars The Force Awakens was like a rehash of Star Wars A New Hope. But for me, with The Force Awakens, new characters, new environments, similar situations, but they were fresh enough that you felt really engaged. But for this, it just felt too paint by the numbers. for
Okay,
me. So,
okay. I will say I thought the sound design was well done. I mean,
Yeah.
Cameron knows how to do that well.
Yeah.
The score really
Chunky,
worked.
yeah.
I thought having the score that was paying tribute to both 1 and 2 and doing it in a way that felt fresh, that really worked
Well,
for me.
the CGI was good.
CGI,
And I'll
visual
tell
effects.
you, we were talking about de-aging technology on The Irishman and Gemini Man a few weeks ago. I thought it was stunning in that first scene.
Oh, yeah, I did too.
Linda Hamilton looked like she did 30 years
I agree.
ago.
I agree completely. And I thought that was spectacular.
Yeah,
that was
jaw
spectacular.
dropping.
But the film as a whole, to me, it's going to be one of those that I'm going to forget about as far as I'll have to go back and try to remind myself of the storyline. So C+ is my rating on this.
B.
B.
yeah, C+ right
Okay.
here as well.
All right. Well, let's talk about Dolemite. We're gonna transition. We're gonna talk about Eddie
Should people
Murphy.
bring the kids in now for this one?
Yeah, this is not for the kids, and I mean kids below the age of 25.
So Thomas has not seen it?
Thomas hasn't seen Dolemite is my name, but I got to say Eddie Murphy is back, and Eddie Murphy is
Better
amazing.
than ever. He's great in it. That's the best role he's had in a long
is.
time. Well,
It
since
is.
Dreamgirls, if you can even count
Right.
that.
Well, as I watched this, I could not help but think about Beverly Hills Cop, Trading Places.
Trading Places.
Those kind of movies were 48 Hours. I mean, the movies that were the R-rated Eddie Murphy films when he was hot.
Yep.
And he just shined, and you couldn't look away
That's a
from
guy that
what
has
was going
so
on.
much talent.
He does.
Except when it comes to picking scripts. He'll have something that's really great, like the ones we've been talking about
Right.
already, and then he'll have Pluto Nash, and he'll have Norbit, and all these other just awful films. So it's a treat to see him
It is.
with a good script.
Because you realize he's still got it.
Yeah.
He's still got it.
Yeah.
And you know, for anybody that would write him off, I say watch this movie.
Oh.
Of course, if you're of age. It is based on a true story of this guy that was, you call him almost, he was in mid-1970s, 75
Early 70s.
was when, you know, he made it big. And the guy's name,
Rudy Ray Moore.
Rudy Ray Moore. He was he claimed to be a stand-up comic, a singer, and a performer, but he was really not very good at any of those things. But he still found a way to survive.
Well, he came up with the Dolemite character, and that saved him in clubs.
Absolutely.
And he parlayed that into a film.
And yet he
Self-produced.
I'm not going to say he stole the Dolemite character,
Yeah.
but he bought it off of some bums on
Yeah.
the street.
Yeah.
He gave them some alcohol and
Yeah.
other things to get them to tell their comedy stories, and he ended up using those. They became incredibly successful on this kind of stand-up circuit, and then he launched a career into he did adult albums first.
Yeah.
making
Which was a
those-
big deal then.
Which was a
Red
real big
Fox
deal. They were
others,
stamped, and
yeah.
you had to be of age to be able
Buy
to
'em under
listen
the
to
counter,
them.
yeah.
Red Fox's earlier stuff, you listen to that and you
Yeah.
get that kind of sense.
Mom's Mabley.
Yeah, but then he launched into film, and when he launched into the film, he didn't know what he was doing. He just knew he wanted to take these things to the big screen.
Sort of an Ed Wood quality about
Absolutely,
that part of it.
and he didn't really set out to make a comedy, but it was so.
But he went
campy.
with it. He
He
wasn't
went with
offended
it.
when they were laughing. He said,
knew it.
okay, I made a comedy.
Absolutely, it was campy, and it really
It was
worked.
sweet too. There was an innocence considering the amount of profanity. There very little to no nudity, really.
Right.
Very little.
Well, there were some. Yeah.
Yeah, modest though. Anyway, okay, it depends on what you call modest. But for the most
Tim's
part,
Tim's taking notes. He's like, what is this movie?
Tim's want to know where you can see this. Right, it's on Netflix. Tim.
Derek's really,
Derek, you're
really wanting to
close
check
your
it.
ears, Derek. But aside from the profanity, it was a sweet movie.
It
There
was.
Yeah.
It really was. And based on a true story, it is available on Netflix, and it did get a limited screenings as well. But if you like Eddie Murphy from those time periods, I would say check it out. It is a different kind of film,
Yeah.
and you walk away just kind of smiling.
Yeah.
You walk away kind of smiling. What was your rating for this?
A.
Yeah, I gave it an A as well. It was just one that I think people are going to remember. And so Dolemite is my name, Netflix original starring Eddie Murphy. Well, binge-worthy, I just want to mention this. If you are a fan of the Jack Ryan series, we're on season 2 or series 2, depending on what you want to
Right.
look at.
Right.
8 episodes, I think, for these originals for Amazon and for Netflix really captures enough. And this is an Amazon original. John Krasinski stars in this. Michael Kelly, who had a strong role on House of Cards. He's
Yeah.
a face that everybody will recognize.
Right.
This is a solid second season, and I think it's even better than the first. And so 8 episodes, you could easily binge that, 1 and 2, and then go through it. If you like action, if you like spycraft, this does a little bit of all of that, and it also throws in political intrigue, which happens in spy films anyway, or spy series. But a big fan of Jack Ryan. It's really good, and he's, he's coming out in 2020 with the sequel.
A Quiet Place
Quiet
Part 2.
Place Part 2.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm torn about that because I thought the first one was so perfect and captured it, but we'll
He
see.
won't be in it.
I know. Yeah. We'll see.
Spoiler.
Spoiler, he's not going to be in it. Well, we're going to wrap up the show with a quote of the week, as we always do. This comes from Terminator Dark Fate. T-800 gave us this quote: "Without purpose, we have nothing. And without money, there is nothing going to be happening with the Terminator Dark Fate sequel." So until next time, for Greg Tillman, Thomas Manning, Tim Foster, and Derek the Weasel, that is a wrap.